Veni Creator Spiritus, mentes tuorum visita, impleso.
And so for today, I'm going to preach just based on the first reading, which is from the reading from St. Paul to the Romans. I try to not make this longer than need be, so I'll read for you the reading from St. Paul. Lesson from the letter of St. Paul the Apostle to the Romans. Brethren, be not wise in your own conceits. To no man render evil for evil, but provide good things not only in the sight of God, but also in the sight of all men. If it be possible, in so far as in you lies, be at peace with all men. Do not avenge yourselves, beloved, but give place to the wrath, for it is written, Vengeance is mine. I will repay, says the Lord. But if your enemy is hungry, give him food. If he is thirsty, give him drink. For by so doing you will heap coals of fire upon his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. St. Paul speaks very vigorously, and I have in mind especially all the young men or adult men who might be who are praying with us right now in this rosary, that the gospel teaching on turning the other cheek, on forgiveness, 70 times 7, there can be a temptation with that for men to feel that, well, really being a Catholic man, there's something that's not quite as vigorous or as much of a warrior. Every man's heart is wired for battle. And sometimes we can't understand, how does forgiveness fit with wanting to be a knight, wanting to defend those who are weaker, not shying away from a battle, willing to fight for what's really good and true, to defend one's family and country and so forth. But they do go very well together, and not just, they actually, to fight as strong as possible as a warrior, you need to be able to also forgive. And St. Paul doesn't mince his words. St. Paul has the heart of a warrior, you could say. He's incredibly courageous. He doesn't shy away from a fight. And so St. Paul, he speaks of heaping coals upon your enemy's head. That's not a politically correct phrase. Heaping coals upon your enemy's head. He's not shying away from fighting evil, fighting an enemy. But he takes, God takes, and St. Paul passes on to us, a very particular strategy as to how to do that. He says, do not avenge yourselves, but if your enemy is hungry, give him food. If he is thirsty, give him drink. And it calls to mind the gospel passage, if someone strikes you on one cheek, turn the other. If they take your coat, give them your cloak as well. If they ask you to go 1 mile, go even further with them. This radical forgiveness. And it's not forgiveness. You could think, well, St. Paul is saying this to heap burning coals on your enemy's head, so you're just doing this to really get vengeance upon him. It's just a strategy. You're not really trying to forgive him or be good. You're just using this technique in order to do him harm, essentially. But that's not what St. Paul is saying. That he's, on the contrary, truly wanting to do good, truly wanting even his great persecutors to be converted, to come to the Lord, to receive his forgiveness. But that goes hand in hand with a vigorous fighting of evil. I'm thinking of one priest I knew who used to say, Lord, illuminate him, speaking of someone who was in effect an enemy, illuminate him or eliminate him. And there's a lot of truth in that phrase. Please, what I really would like is to illuminate him, to be forgiven, to convert, and so forth. But if he's not accepting that, eliminate him in the sense of remove him from this situation, or remove him from where he can harm us, Lord. And well, let me do this. Let me read again the passage and see what you think. If I'm reading this passage, what do you think are the key parts of this strategy you haven't yet implemented in your life? And then I'm going to give you a couple practical points. So once again, St. Paul, he says, brethren, be not wise in your own conceits. To no man render evil for evil, but provide good things not only in the sight of God, but also in the sight of all men. If it be possible, in as far as in you lies, be at peace with all men. Do not avenge yourselves, beloved, but give place to wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. But if your enemy is hungry, give him food. If he is thirsty, give him drink. For by so doing you will heap coals, burning coals of fire upon his head. Be not overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. What is this strategy and how can we implement it? You perhaps heard, hopefully you did hear, a part or two of that passage that, okay, this really applies to me. But to give you a couple of practical points for everyone here, first of all, he says, if it be possible, insofar as in you lies, be at peace with all men. So he's recognizing there's sometimes you can't be at peace with all men. But if it be possible, insofar as in you lies, if it's not, there's certain things we just cannot compromise, certain things we have to fight at all costs. Abortion would be one of those. But there are many things where we can make sacrifices, make adjustments to be more at peace with people. So adapting what I like to do to adapt to how someone else likes things to be done. Maybe they're a bit eccentric. Maybe they have these things that don't make much sense, but they're things I can go the extra mile to adapt to how they want me to do my work in the office, or how I should do something in the home to please your spouse or someone else within your home. There's lots of secondary things where we can make sacrifices, which sometimes for us are rather painful sacrifices, but where there's no problem in terms of compromising with evil or compromising God's law. And so that's very important. St. Alphonsus Liguori insists on that, to do the best we can to be agreeable, to be peaceful to all men. But then there is another aspect, which is, and that's the aspect, the opposite of this would be to accompany man, to just agree with anything anyone has said. And that's not what St. Paul is saying. He says, give place to wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. He's saying, let God be the great avenger, either directly, which God often does. If you practice radical forgiveness, God often himself will remove that situation from that evil from your life, or wait until it's truly the time where God says, now is the time to fight. In a very spectacular way, he did that with St. Joan of Arc, saying, now lead the armies, lead them in the military battle. Or St. King Louis, or other saints who've been called to fight vigorously, even in physical wars. And so don't act out of your own vengeance. Pray, forgive, wait on God's time until either you sense, okay, this really is a time God is calling me to fight, cooperate with him, but where you're cooperating with him, where he's the main one giving vengeance. And I would say 98% of the time, God wishes himself to justify you or take vengeance even without you having to fight, if you practice this radical charity and radical forgiveness. I'm realizing I took longer notes for the homily I'm preaching to the boys today, so I'm not going to give you all of that. Some things apply just to them at school. I'll just finish with maybe with one particular example, and that is the North American martyrs. So the North American martyrs coming in the United States, hopefully you're familiar with their lives. If not, hopefully you'll read about them, or maybe I'll preach on them at one point. But they were tortured and killed, and at first tortured to the point of death, but didn't quite die. And they practiced this radical forgiveness of forgiving their enemies, who were these Indian tribes at the time, and then coming back to preach to them, to offer them the gospel. And that forgiveness, as we see already back in Roman times, began to lead to conversions among some of the Indians who witnessed what had been done to them, and called down graces from heaven that eventually led to the great missionary efforts that would take place across what is now North America. So thank you very much for following this Our Lady of Fatima Rosary Crusade, and thank you for all your prayers, and I'll look forward to praying the Holy Rosary with you tomorrow.